hard to talk with your hands on a podcast. Welcome back to Bizarre Podcast, Dogs Must Die. My name is Grant. You can call him Chip. And as promised, we are back with a very special guest. Please introduce yourself as you would like to be introduced.
Hey, it's me, Stuart Wellington, 1/3 of the Flophouse Podcast. I'm a long-term podcaster, a long-term bartender bar owner here in Brooklyn, New York. Come visit my bars. And I am an amateur enthusiast of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure.
I mean, we're not getting paid, so I guess we're also amateur.
Well, I'm not getting paid for this?
Sorry. There's not enough money for that.
Oh, man. I was hoping for a golden wind of money, if you know what I mean.
A golden windfall. Yeah. So, Stuart, one of the first questions I like to ask all of our guests is what brings you here today? When and how did you get into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and why has it got some degree of hooks, some depth into you?
Sure. Okay. I think my first exposure to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I'd heard I had a friend in college who was a big manga nerd. And I don't mean that to be derisive. He was just a nerd who was also into manga. And like he was
deriding him for other reasons.
Yeah, exactly. He knows what he did. But he was the guy in college who had like the Japanese books where I'm like reading Berserk without any. I had to like figure out what was going on from just pictures, or like he had a VHS copy of Mononoke before it was available with subtitles, like that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so he had mentioned JoJo's Bizarre Adventure a bunch of times, and so I was familiar with the name, but it wasn't until a few years later that a friend of mine bought the DVD of the OVA for the Stardust Crusaders story. Mm-hmm. He bought that at Kim's Video here in New York, and I think I watched it like 4 times in a weekend. I was just like totally into it. I think it's because it had enough of the design of like Fist of the North Star for me, but it also has that, and the biggest hook for me is that it looks like all the characters looks like they're designed for like fashion plates from an issue of Italian Vogue if the models were all WWF wrestlers.
Yeah.
So like that's what like I'm just so into this. And that OVA is great. That OVA is awesome.
Yeah. When Triple H came out with the farting dog gimmick, what a time to be alive.
He should. So that was my first exposure, and then I feel like I noticed that the trades are being translated and reprinted in like nice hardcover editions. I think I'd just been like reading stuff on Comixology or something, and I was like, oh man, I'm looking for something to read. Why don't I check these out? And I think I read up through Stardust Crusaders before I switched over to watching the anime because all the Diamond is Unbreakable books weren't available at the time, and I didn't feel like waiting.
Yeah. And now we're up to the point where Golden Wind is about half finished through those Viz Media hardcovers.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I'll have to read it now that I've finished watching.
Yeah. And at least digitally, I think if you've got like the Shonen Jump or the Viz app on your phone or something, they're early on into part 6 there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll invest in one of those apps. Because it's probably better than Comixology, because
it's like $2 a month.
It's Amazon.
It has all of One Piece on it for $2 a month. So if you've ever wanted to have
there's a couple issues of that, right? There's a few issues of One Piece, right?
Yeah, if you want a manga that never fucking ends, it's a good deal.
A friend of mine did a voice for one of the dubs of One Piece. He did the voice for Sanji. At some point, my friend David Moo, and he got a lot of heat because he made some choices in his character voice that people didn't like. But I'm sure I think he did it with like a tough guy Brooklyn-y accent or something, and some folks were not pleased.
Does that mean it was the 4Kids dub?
Maybe. I don't know specifics. I mean, he's a very nice guy, great bartender, owns a nice bar in Brooklyn.
So, yes, I mean, speaking of bar ownership, let's just, I've just got a question. Stuart,
Yeah.
if your bars were in Passione territory, which of these boys would you hope comes around for your shakedown? And which ones would you absolutely not want to see?
Man, I feel like Narantia has a little too much like chaotic energy. I don't know if I want to deal with that. He's also definitely too young. I mean, they're all too young, right? They're all like 12 years old or something. I mean, obviously you want Giorno Giovanna. I mean, he's incredible. He's good at everything. He's smart. His outfits, I mean, that heart-shaped cutout, oh man, it's amazing. But obviously the number one person I want the boss himself, Bruno Bucciaretti, with his sticky fingers just coming in, turning everything into zippers. I love that shit.
Yeah, Giorno's an interesting, he's very different because like, I was thinking back on the first parts early, or all of our previous JoJos have had really strong introductions into this is who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where Giorno's is more of a question. It's who is this guy and who could he be?
Yeah.
Which is a really big shift that part 5 takes.
And like, how did he get his hair to do that? But I guess that's a pretty common thing, right? Because with Jotaro, you're like, how is his hair clipping through his hat like that? But yeah, it's amazing. It's incredible. What design?
With part 5, I remember one of the things that the first time I watched it when it was airing that I didn't like was how for a lot of the show, a lot of the middle of the show, Giorno kind of goes into the background a bit. Because Bruno is such a strong presence and feels like the protagonist for a while. But upon like rewatching it, like I was fine with it, just kind of knowing that like even if like maybe the show doesn't explore it enough or focus on it hard enough, it does kind of feel more like the opening 4 episodes or whatever asks you who could Giorno end up being, because it feels like he's a protagonist who hasn't fully formed yet, like on purpose, and then he's just another member of the crew while Bruno is, you know, the boss essentially. And then by the end Bruno fucking dies, and with Bruno dying, that's like the instant Giorno actually becomes a protagonist. Like he takes over the mantle. Bruno just passes "I'm the coolest guy" down to Giorno as he dies. And then by the end of it, because like Giorno kind of changes a bit, like just almost sort of suddenly when his stand gets requiemed.
Yeah.
But you know, he's acting kind of differently and a little colder almost, and a little bit more like Bruno by the end, and it's just like, oh, this is who Giorno's going to be. Like
Yeah, exactly. We've also talked about all of these previous parts as coming of age stories, and Giorno is the only one who becomes his father, by which I do mean Bruno. Like
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
I think Bucciarati is the gangster that watched over little baby Giorno. Like they are identical characters. They're not the same person. I'm not saying that there's some like time travel face swapping nonsense,
Could
but they are
happen.
clearly the same character.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean this part is so much more of an ensemble story, right? Like they introduce the gang relatively early on, and then it becomes like let's spend some time with each member of the gang and get to know them and like care about them. And Giorno's there to basically be like, if we need somebody to figure out the enemy's weakness, he's probably the one who will figure it out first. He might not be the toughest guy. He might not be the key to defeating them, but he'll figure it out before having his body dissolve or something. The amount of body horror in this specific series is wild. Like, it is so much grosser. It's awesome.
I was reading that Araki wanted to call this a farewell to arms, but apparently that's already copywritten by somebody else. I don't know.
That's weird. They're very similar in themes, though. Both ensemble stories.
But I do think it's interesting how much that Giorno resembles Bruno in the end, because like that's the biggest refutation of like this franchise's thing about like faded bloodlines. He doesn't become either of his biological fathers. He becomes his adopted father.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
There's no Jonathan Joestar in that boy. It's all Bruno.
Well, yes, he has more than 2 brain cells to rub together. There's no Jonathan Joestar.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, although like there's also I guess a question at the end of the series where he has become the head of the organization. I mean, you assume he'll be like Bucciaretti, but could he become more like Dio Brando? Who knows? Could he become a villain for someone else down the line?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be fun.
Oh man,
I feel
that would be fun.
somebody else spending 8 episodes trying and failing to pick up an object. Hell yes. But it's clear that this part really like rides or dies on how much you like the rowdy boys.
Mm-hmm.
I had another person interested in being a guest, but not in this part because he does not like these boys.
Oh wow! But they're such great boys. They like to eat food and give each other the dozens.
So yeah, if you're not really invested, this final stretch is totally going to lose you. Like, you've got to have hooks in you to care once the Requiem bullshit starts.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, I mean, compared to some of the previous series, this one, I feel like the climax is probably the weakest of the, like, I care the least about the actual, like, what the hell is going on part. I had a little bit of trouble following some of exactly what's like, especially as soon as Chariot Requiem shows up, and then like, I'm like, how is he beating this guy at this point? But you just go along with it. It's fine. But yeah, it just didn't like it didn't have it wasn't quite as tight as the final couple episodes of Diamond is Unbreakable, with all the, I mean, which also had time jumping in it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a thing like in Stardust Crusaders where you're like, okay, I guess Jotaro's just tougher now. I guess you're just going to beat him up.
Yeah. The final confrontation is, there is a lot of just random bullshit that gets pulled out of nowhere. I kind of respect the final confrontation though, because it's so different from every other one of those in JoJo, because it's not really a straight fight. It's like a race almost.
Yeah.
Everyone's just racing, and then when somebody gets too close to another person, it's just like, okay, I gotta bump your car to make you spin out so I get a better chance. That's the only time they're trading blows, really.
What if Wacky Races was body horror? Yes. And then there was a weird puzzle boss at the end where you had to obliterate your mind orb. Yes.
I mean, okay.
That took me a while to wrap my dome around. I'm like, so wait, you can just, I guess, just punch it and put a bunch of zippers in it, and I guess you win? Mm-hmm. I don't... And wait, so there were only 2 orbs that you had to destroy? You had to... that's the problem was that, so did everyone have an orb behind their head?
Right. This is why,
nobody knows.
The previous episode, even though Grant convinced me this is not the case, and everyone is supposedly just has a mind orb they don't know about behind their goddamn head, it makes way more sense that mind orb is the actual Silver Chariot Requiem.
Okay.
The stand itself is the light source, casting, light on your soul from behind, which casts the shadow of Silver Chariot Requiem, which is also hey, I punched the mind orb, the actual stand, and that's why it takes damage. But I think everyone just has a secret mind orb.
Yeah, and so so you're working. So imagine you're writing this, and you're like, I need to bring back an existing character that is going to fit into what I want to do, which is create this Requiem thing that walks around and does this, garbage, and there's mind orbs. I'm surprised that it was Polnareff.
It's very funny that Polnareff is a hacker.
And that he lives in a turtle forever now.
Yay!
Okay, let's run down who was around in late 80s Egypt and isn't dead. We got slim pickings here.
Yeah,
that's true.
We need someone who isn't a Joestar, and there's only one of those left alive.
Super Hacker Boingo would be fun.
Yeah.
Oh God, what if it was Whole Horse though?
That would have been cool.
Oh man,
that would have been rad.
Wasn't what's his name, Koiki from the little guy.
Koichi, yeah.
Koichi.
Little fella.
Yeah, where's what happened to what happened to him? He showed up in Italy and then
He's still on vacation.
I guess
He got a pizza. He looked at some art, and he went home for his cram school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope he wasn't in Rome when all that fucking mold killed everybody.
Oh my god, just
That was
imagine if there was a
wild.
quick shot of just Koichi just like touring and he just fucking melts because he walked down a sidewalk. God.
Oh man, his girlfriend would be so mad.
And then she would kill Diavolo. The end.
Yeah. So speaking of killing Diavolo, he's trapped in like a mental prison where he just dies over and over forever, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. That's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
So I went through and compiled kill counts of all the Passione members.
Yeah.
Specifically the killing other Passione members. Like if we just included like random bystanders, it's Cioccolata by like miles, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from the bottom, we have Fugo, Mista, and Pericolo with 1 apiece.
Okay.
Okay.
Pericolo's KD ratio is 1-1. Next up, Diavolo and Cioccolata 2 apiece.
Okay.
Because Cioccolata killed Sorbet and Gelato in the anime version of the flashback.
Right.
That's his 2.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense.
And now we get the heavy hitters with Bruno and Narancia at 4 each.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, Narancia with his little Aerosmith.
And Giorno at the top, either tied at 4 or 5 or infinite, depending on how you count Diavolo.
That's crazy. The okay, so were there any other stands that trigger after the stand owner or whatever dies other than Notorious B.I.G.?
No?
Okay. And so does that guy come back to life? How does that? So does
Was
he only
he
get to use it
ever
once?
alive?
Yeah, was he ever? I guess that's a good question. Was he ever alive? Oh man, that's a good question. Oh man,
I would love if that guy was like partnered up with a stand user that can just bring shit back to life or something, and that's how he can repeatedly use his stand.
It's a powerful combo.
And also someone to like go to the bank for him and buy clothes because he's got to get that all custom fit. That is not a human body shape.
Yeah. Just a square man.
I can't imagine
Yeah.
Carney's life out in society.
That's his
is
name, Carne. Yeah, and then Pesci trying to shop for collared shirts, and you're like, buddy, you got a Vin Diesel neck over here, man.
He invented the deep V just out of necessity.
Yeah, it's like that scene in what Fast and the Furious 6 when they go to like a dress up party, and I'm like, oh no, Vin Diesel has to wear a tuxedo, his greatest enemy. Don't worry, he wore it open necked. Oh yeah, so the assassination team, that was a great inverse of our fun rowdy boys. I do like how they were all named after food. That was great. What do you think the silliest? Because obviously this feels like the first time they really dug deep into changing the names of all the stands for at least the American, the English dub or subtitles. There's some wacky, there's some wacky weird interpretations that don't make sense. Like Emperor Crimson, obviously that's pretty straightforward. Lil Bomber doesn't sound like Aerosmith, but that's fine. What was it? 6 Bullets instead of Sex Pistols. Moody Jazz. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
I mean, there's a couple I genuinely like, either because they're funny or I'm fine with Aerosmith becoming Lil Bomber because it's just kind of cute sounding.
Yep.
Kraftwerk being Arts and Crafts.
Oh, right. Okay.
Love that one. Love
which
that
one was Arts and Crafts? Which one was Arts and Crafts?
The Breath of the Wild stasis power.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Oh man, what did they change Babyface to? It was Oh man, it was something like baby. Oh, it was baby head.
Yeah, baby head.
That's even more of the baby.
Yeah, that's the. Yeah, that's true. Is that and was the stand the computer? Was the stand the laptop? Because he used a little laptop, right?
And the laptop did have a baby's face.
Yeah. And it could walk around and stuff. It had legs, too.
And Spice Girl didn't actually have anything to do with spice. It just made you rubbery, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although it did leave, like, spicy handprints a couple of times.
Okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
Metallica makes sense. I don't think I ever really wrapped my head around King Crimson's power. He erases time and he can see forward in time. Is that the case?
Have you seen Click?
No, actually. For some reason, the trailers did not make me want to watch it. And we're talking about the Adam Sandler movie, not Click, the comic by Milo Manara. No, I haven't.
Okay, well, the best possible explanation of King Crimson's stand power is in Click, starring Adam Sandler.
Okay.
And a dog that won't stop humping things.
While in that movie, does he say, wow, this is exactly the same power as Diavolo in his King Crimson stand?
Yeah, it's incredibly recursive. It's actually not a helpful.
Yeah. It's like in Fellowship of the Ring when the first time the hobbits see Goldberry, they're like, it's as if an elven maiden had come to the door. And I'm like, but there's no elven maidens in the story yet. I don't know what you're talking about.
In our last episode, when we had to talk about like it's a chore. In our last episode, when we talked about the Rolling Stone fight, and the user was like so curious about Bruno's last words, that made me curious. So I went back and checked. Mm-hmm. And there is something of an arc to the three things that could be his last words.
Yeah.
So halfway through, the last thing he says before his body is killed back in Venice, he's just mocking Diavolo. I invite you to face the future head on as you're greeted by the sight of me while on the ground floor. Those are the last things he says while he's traditionally alive.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then the last thing he says before ascending and giving up his second lease on life in Diavolo's body is just explaining what he's doing with the orb.
Yes.
Quote, everyone's souls will return to their bodies post-haste.
Okay.
Post-haste.
And the actual last thing he says in the story is, quote, fate is a slumbering slave, one we have at last emancipated, the day is ours. So it goes from like cocky fighting through matter-of-fact claims into like the wisdom of those who have passed on.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you guys just recently talked about this, but I have some questions about...
Sure.
I have some questions about the last episode and a half of this show. Because why... What's the...
Just why?
Why? Because it doesn't feel necessary. Was it like, do you think it was like, oh fuck, I had the idea for this cool stand and I forgot to stick it in, so we're gonna do a little flashback right at the end? And by cool stand, I mean not that cool. Yeah, so what was going on there? Does it add to some theme or deeper meaning that I didn't quite grasp? It seemed kind of pointless. It didn't seem like, I don't think, other than Bucciaretti, the others involved didn't die, right? So it's not like this was one last trip for these guys.
Well, the final reveal was that after Mista just wrecked the rock, it actually had three faces in it, and those are the three that died, Abacchio and Narancia too.
Oh, okay. So Guido Mista do you think that because of him, those other two died?
Maybe.
Is that the implication?
Maybe.
And do you think, I feel like Mista got, maybe more than Giorno, got the most screen time of the boys.
Mista's absolutely the Polnareff of this group. We've spoken about it before, but like part 5 is very much a very similar structure to Stardust Crusaders.
Yeah.
It feels
it's like
very
a road
much,
story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like, yeah, there are a lot of parallels with part 5 and 3, down to the fact that, like, half the cast dies at the end. You got a guy who he's not the same character as Polnareff, but he gets a lot of the same focus that Polnareff did. I guess Misa didn't really have as much of a character arc as Polnareff did, because he got like 3.
Yeah. I mean, Polnareff. Yeah, what a character. He lives in a turtle.
Lives in a turtle, loves to poop, but
and I feel like Misa's one of those characters where it's like, and I think Narancia got a little bit too, where they're like, okay, so we need one of the gang to fall afoul of this enemy stand user, and they have to do it by kind of being an idiot, and that doesn't make sense for Giorno because he's super smart. Just like you can't have Jotaro do something dumb because he's the fucking coolest dude in the universe.
Yeah.
I still think he's probably the coolest dude to ever live up to this point, right? Is there anyone cooler than Jotaro? I mean, Bucciaretti is close.
Did you see Jotaro's office at the start of part 5? That's the coolest dude ever.
Yeah, what a badass.
I mean, a bunch of books up on a shelf that he can't reach. He has framed starfish. That's cool as hell.
So
I'm looking at that office right now, and he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 framed starfish.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you know, but he's got a stand. It's called Star Platinum.
It is a cool stand.
So he likes stars, and when other people go on vacation, like Koichi, they just, if they're at a gift shop and there's some kind of a star or a starfish, they just buy it for him and bring it back.
Yeah,
and then he's like, I guess I'll frame this because I don't want to make him feel bad because I am the coolest dude ever. And that's part of being super cool, is making everybody feel like you got that, like when your attention turns on them, they like their entire life brightens up a little bit. So that's the whole thing about Jotaro.
Yeah, he's definitely a very polite boy.
Yeah.
Well, now at least.
Yeah.
That was his character arc in part 3, learning how to be more polite.
Yeah, he was a rude dude with attitude at first, but he and Josuke had that a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the JoJos are a bit of a rude dude with tude.
Not Giorno kind of starts like that too, and then eventually we're like, oh no, he's just a sweet boy.
He's pulling little scams on people. Yeah.
I guess he's more rude dude with heart, which isn't as fun because it doesn't rhyme.
That's true. And by heart, we're talking specifically about the heart-shaped cutout on his little jumpsuit.
Oh, yeah.
And his ability to just make donor organs at a moment's notice out of garbage in the streets.
It's incredible. What a power. I do like the idea where you're like, okay, somebody on this team is going to have healing powers because I'm going to fuck everybody up. Like, I do love the moment when Giorno had to sever his other arm off, and they're like, I guess we're fucked now.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I don't know. I'd like to circle back to the original question about what is going on with Rolling Stone. And like,
sure, okay.
Yeah, that part is weird. Like, if you are here for the story of how we got rid of that evil, nasty boss, it is useless. It is nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're here about the lives of these rowdy boys and their relationships with one another, it's kind of disappointing. It's not what it's really about.
Yeah.
But if you're in on the fate thing, what is happening with fate? What does fate mean? Can you struggle against it? The answer seems to be no, but there's value in doing so anyway. It really is the keystone of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's essential that this comes at the very end, as opposed to like, so, because that was the whole thing about Diavolo's prescience, is that he would see the future and he either thinks he automatically wins or he's automatically fucked. And then by the end of using his powers or whatever, we'd be like, oh, tables are turned. So do you think there could have been dramatic tension by including this flashback earlier in the story, so we would have been worried about these characters and also see if there was a way that they could fight against their fate? I don't know. I don't know.
The chronological cut would be interesting. If only because I think it would make the first third drag even more. Like,
Yeah.
now there's 2 episodes where Giorno doesn't even show up. What is happening?
Yeah. I think that's one of the hard, because I think it could work being much earlier in the story, especially if you put that earlier on, and then add a little bit more actual, like, intentional stuff in the story to keep bringing up the whole fighting against fate thing. You've got a villain whose power is just kind of like, hey, fate's on my fucking side, and you're just boned eternally. And then, breaking that in a way with Giorno's powered up stand. But yeah, I don't know how you put that earlier without making the first third drag even more. Cause
that's true.
I really do enjoy having all those flashbacks to flesh out the characters more than they are in the manga. But man, I don't know how you do that without also making the first third drag so much.
Yeah, what are some of the differences between the show and the manga? Because I haven't read the manga for this yet.
Grant, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all those flashbacks are like the stories of their flashbacks were told in the manga, but just like very briefly in like a panel of just like text or whatever, instead of actually,
And then they're fleshed out into full scenes for the anime, particularly the Hitman team's flashback.
Yes.
Like the double funeral is not in the manga at all, but that's people who really like the execution team really point to that scene. It's like, that's why I like them. They seem like they all are coworkers that hate each other, but when it comes time to like respect their fallen, they're there. And Risotto's the last one to leave.
Is Risotto the one that wears the little jester hat and has Metallica?
Yeah.
Oh man, what a cool outfit! What a cool dude!
the goth jester.
Oh man, so awesome. It's like a member of Arcturus or something. It's that's cool. Yeah, I feel like that would make sense. So also like the stuff about like the time Guido Mista almost got shot a bunch, but they all missed him. Like that was all just
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And the story about Abakio being a cop and getting his partner killed, is that what happened?
Yep.
And it also, I like that this highlights that it's similar to how in movies actors who play gangsters also always seem to play cops. Very similar, very similar.
Yes.
Very similar skill set, look, attitude, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about some of the stand powers and stands, but we got a selection of people with incredible abilities that are not down to their stands here. We got a man that can be a bed. We got a man that can fold his entire ear inside his own skull.
Yes.
Yep.
We got the world's most brilliant surgeon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a champion spitter.
Wait, you're talking about the dog man who swims in the
dog man.
Yeah.
Yep.
And his stand Oasis.
The guy who can essentially break the laws of physics by spitting at it. Yeah, there's a lot more instances of people using their own abilities in tandem with their stand abilities to make something even crazier happen, which I think is pretty much always fun. It's fun to see a stand power get far more dangerous because the user itself can do something also crazy.
I would love to see a flashback story, like a prequel with, young Pulpo coming up in the ranks to become a capo, and he has to kill somebody by turning into a bed and lying in wait.
I'm imagining the exact same scene of Giorno showing those cops his, folding his ear into his skull trick, but it's just Pulpo turning into a bed.
It's so weird.
Hey guys, check this out. Bed mode.
I was so surprised that Pulpo, not to talk about him not being a bed or anything, but I was so surprised that he died so early on, because I'm like, he's clearly magic. Like, it's wild that this like magic dude. But whatever, yeah. R.I.P. to a real one.
Killed by a banana that was secretly a gun.
And that's why I never eat produce.
Yeah, don't eat fruit. bananas were guns, frogs were phones. What a show. Now with Diavolo and what's Doppio? I gotta say, I was not expecting
my favorite Snow White themed breakfast cereal.
I was not expecting the villain, the head of a criminal organization, to be like a split personalities thing.
Doppio's scary. Like, Doppio gets fucking scary.
It's fucking scary. Where he's making his weird little phone noises and walking around.
How much of Diavolo's success is because he was hitchhiking inside the world's deadliest cutie pie?
And how old is that character supposed to be?
Yeah, because you there are some things about Doppio and Diavolo just left unexplained. Like, we get that kind of like origin story flashback. I forget what year it was. Was it like the 70s when he was born or something like that? So he should be like in his 50s or something, and everyone, like that fortune teller remarks that he looks really young.
He was a teenage adventurer seeking his fortune in like the days before Dio's rise.
Yeah.
In Sardinia or whatever.
And like he just doesn't age for some reason after a certain point, or at least Doppio doesn't.
I like his flashback one because it's a fun, weird little like ghost story, but also it teaches you not the answers to the questions you want. It teaches you to stop expecting answers to the questions you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
You should not expect this man to have a past. He is beyond having a past. He obliterates time. He doesn't have a past.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, isn't that what he keeps talking about, is how he's overcome his own past or destroyed his own past or something? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Now, he has a pretty unique signature look. I'm kind of surprised that Bucciaretti didn't really remember, like, didn't get more of an impression of him when they got in that fight under the church.
It's all about lighting,
Yeah.
It's
all lighting in the fact that seemingly Diavolo looks like an extremely different man if he puts a suit on and slicks his hair back. He looks like a normal man. Yeah, I do love that. Like, every time you see the boss in silhouette, he just looks like what you would expect a mob boss to look like, maybe just in a suit with this very slicked back hair and looking like a man in his late 30s, early 40s. And then the instant you see the actual Diavolo, he's a fucking like 20-year-old twink or whatever.
Yeah.
With watermelon seeds in his hair.
Yeah, yep, and a very specific zigzag part in his hair.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, as soon as Bucciaretti saw him wearing a suit, he would be like, there's no way that's the boss, because mafiosos in this world dress like crazy people like I do. Like, mafiosos Bucciaretti's wearing barrettes in his hair, right? That's what those yellow things are. Those have to be barrettes. And then he's got
the narrator tells us in like the second or third episode that mafiosi blend in among the people.
Yes.
Makes
and
sense.
Like, you see the people in the show all the time, and they dress like normal people. What is going on?
Yeah, I do love the idea of like stand users being drawn to stand users. And you're like, I wonder which guy is the stand user. Oh, it's that crazy looking dude who's posing at me.
There really needs to be a stand user who's the most average looking man in the world, and they just cannot locate him because he's too plain looking.
That was like the first stand fight ever. That's Tower of Grey.
Oh no, I guess so. Yeah, you're right.
Wait, which is the first stand fight?
That's the third?
It's like the second or third. When they're in the plane in Stardust Crusaders and the stand is a nasty little fly that writes on the walls with people's tongue blood.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
And that's Tower, right? That was back when they were still naming them after the major arcana of the tarot.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And before they were just named after rock and roll bands. And
speaking of all of the lore, we got some big lore lately. Meteoric revelation, you might say.
Good one.
What do we think about the idea of stands as science fiction rather than like mystic oddness?
Mm-hmm. I remember when I saw that reveal for the first time, I was just saying, "What?" the whole time. The whole time, when I think about it now, all I can think is, man, there's a way to tie in the revelation of Stan's being product of an alien virus from a meteor with the alien guy from part 4.
Exactly.
There's such a way you could wrap all that up in a potentially fun way. But yeah,
you're talking about the alien guy who shows up, is mentioned a couple times, has an adventure, and then is never mentioned again, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That guy. Like I can imagine a fun story around that. But yeah, then you do start getting into like sci-fi stuff with Jojo, which it hasn't really gone into too much. I mean, that could be fun, but on its own, I think it's strange because it doesn't really add much to anything. And as far as I know from later parts, I'm pretty sure it literally never comes up again.
So part 3 in Stardust Crusaders is where they introduce stands at all, right?
Yes.
And then part 4, they introduced the idea of the arrow that makes people have stands.
Or kills them.
Kills them, you're right. And then this one explains the origin of the arrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the mechanism of how it gives you a stand or kills you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alien virus.
I mean, I've always approached stands as a big umbrella term for many distinct, like, multiple choice related things that interact. Maybe I'm just playing this card too many times, but I like the alien virus as a way to say that you're never going to solve stands. Do not try, because this, like, attempt at doing so is so aberrant. It should tell you that this is not a path worth investigating.
Okay,
there is no solution to this problem because alien virus mutates you by your will. Maybe it's related to Mikitaka. Okay, how did Dio getting stabbed with an arrow give stands to people on the other side of the planet?
Good question.
Yeah.
You're never going to create a grand unified stand theory that explains all of these cases.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of Dio, they do the reveal that Giorno is Dio's son, right?
So he got late onset blondness.
Yes. But you would think that I was expecting that to be part of the conflict of the series. That, like, him finding out that his father was a monster vampire evil dude would be part of his arc. But it had nothing to do with it, and I don't think he even ever knows, right? He never finds out.
He never finds out. Yeah, he just has.
He never knows what Dio did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild. It's wild that that's like the only reason that exists almost is so that we, the audience, can be like, oh, okay, so I guess he is a JoJo. Like, this makes sense. It's all family stuff. I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, just one more post-credit scene where, like, Jotaro calls him up on the phone in his, like, in his mansion. Like, all right, so your biological dad, here's some of the stuff he did. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, rip to him, but I'm different.
Yeah, I'm built different. Look at me. My jumpsuit is now black, but it looks the exact same. I do love that he is, like, he's running the crime organization. Like, it's almost, when I saw that, I'm like, oh yeah, that was his goal. Like, because he's acting up until this point, once he's gotten the Requiem thing, he definitely seems older. There's, like, a way that he's drawn a little bit different. There's something about the way that he is, he's presented that makes him appear a little bit older and more confident. And also, like aloof, like worldly matters don't matter anymore. But I guess they still do, because he wants to run the criminal organization and get rid of drugs. That's the plan, right?
The focus on selling drugs to kids is so constant and so funny.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like it's very much like a funny to us, but like the approach to drugs in Japan is a lot more hardcore in that, like, even having weed is, like, really fucking bad for you.
There is
like,
nothing nearly as consistent in Golden Wind as the absolute villainy of selling drugs to kids.
Yeah.
Golden Wind loves criminals, hates crime. This is the fix. We need to find the one most heinous crime.
It's like that Boba Fett show where you're like, he's a crime boss, but he doesn't do any crime.
I mean, I was reminded of Star Wars, but specifically how we love royalty. Star Wars loves a king, loves a princess, hates autocracy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're just all democratic figureheads. It's fine.
Yeah. Jojo.
Man, part 5 has some pretty good fights in it. Like, even compared to other parts. I'm almost thinking more just like in the animation direction, whenever the show decides like, hey, it's time to crank it up a couple notches. You've got some extremely good stuff throughout this. You've got multiple rocket arm punches. You've got Bruno zipping his head in half to dodge a punch.
Yeah.
There's some really good shit in part 5.
Come up with a third example that isn't Bruno. I dare you.
Well, no, one of the first rocket punches is Giorno. When his arm is half unzipped, when he's fighting Bruno, he tears his own arm off and just throws it at Bruno.
I feel like that first fight between Bruno and Giorno is one of the highlights of the show. Like that got me up to that point. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. But that was where I started getting into it.
You've got Mista constantly shooting himself with his own gun to win.
He only intentionally does it once.
It feels like he does it every time, but all the other times is just the enemies deflect his bullets in a way that he gets shot by his own gun. But
I wish it worked. I wish he had a chance to do it again and have like his stand, inner spacing around inside him to actually do something, because it was such a fun idea.
Yeah.
What was Fugo's stand again? What does he do?
Purple haze with the virus capsules that when he punches and it breaks open, it disperses a virus into the air that melts everything in 10 seconds.
That's why he wasn't around later on.
It's very much a villain stand, which is a fun idea.
Yeah, okay, cool. Then he used that against the Man of the Mirror stand? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
The only time he uses it, actually.
Yeah. Whatever happens to him, he just disappears.
He's the one member of the group that cannot abide with the plan of, like, betraying the boss and going against him, which does feed very well into, Derancha's whole character. It works out really well, even though, he is just kind of getting written out of the story because Araki wanted to narrow the group by one member, and he just didn't know what else to do with Fugo.
Yep, that makes sense.
And he didn't want to use the original plan for Fugo, which was that he was supposed to be a traitor in the group working for the boss.
Because, I feel like there's also like a certain amount of limit to his stand. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's just my lack of imagination. But I feel like that sequence, like that fight with the mirror world and all that was exciting. Like, I feel like so many of the fights, especially at this point in the show, are all like, it's more and more puzzles. Like, it's however many puzzles you can throw in there. You got to figure out every little thing. Bucciaretti hanging from the side of a train and like punching something knowing that it would reflect and hit something else.
Yeah,
it's great.
Mista having to shoot multiple bullets so that it can push the bullet already in a dude's head deep enough so that it goes into his brain.
That's true.
It's a good one.
Yeah. The fight with the ice guy who's making everybody's hands fall apart with the ice skates. That was a pretty wild fight.
This part's just so violent.
Yeah, well, especially after the last one where it was like every time they get in a fight, they'd be like, okay, we're friends now. And now this one, they're like, we're just going to murder these dudes. Like, we're going to unzip his head from his body, and then we're going to torture his head.
And it's a fun team building exercise.
Yeah, you're right.
We're going to sing copyright safe version of Pussy Control while we dance around. Thinking about the end, though, like, Diavolo defeated himself more than any previous villain.
Yeah.
Like,
Explain.
he killed Doppio indirectly, and without Doppio, he's powerless, and he doesn't know it. I think that's part of the interesting thing about the boss is, and going back to what was explicitly told to him by that fortune teller, that as long as they're together, they're unstoppable. It's because Doppio does all the fucking hard work. So when they split off, and that was the beginning of the end. And then also, yeah, he caused the conditions in which those feral sewer stabbers were becoming feral sewer stabbers.
True.
So yeah, once he's alone in a body, of course it's an easy fight. Diavolo's never had to try before.
Yeah.
King Crimson skips the effort, goes right to results. Like, he got private stand tutoring from Enya. He's been carried by my little pink baby boy. As far as effort goes, yeah, Chariot Requiem is the hard part, but just like beating up Diavolo, I could do that. God, why not? He's a chump.
Yeah. It doesn't it seems like his strength is exclusively in his using his time deletion power, but even that, like, they figure out workarounds pretty quick, right? Like, just cut yourself, watch the blood drops. Feel like there's probably an easier way to do it, but that is a very visual way, so I appreciate it.
Thinking about it, like, you don't see too many instances of Diavolo using his stand power in a creative way that basically every other stand user does, aside from maybe like dodging those Sex Pistol bullets while he was running.
Or zapping himself out of causality enough to be shot through by a little bomber.
Yes.
Which is essentially the same move, but it's a good move.
It is.
It was good. It was smart.
But it feels like, he almost like relies on the stand ability he has like as a crutch and doesn't do much else with it because he's so convinced it's completely unstoppable, because it's like, yeah, people figure out his power way quicker than the similar power of the world in part 3, where it's like the most fucking deadly thing ever. And like that one was just stopping time and wasn't even being able to predict the next couple seconds of the future.
Well, because that's attached to an immortal vampire, not a fucking chump.
Diavolo is so cautious to the point where it's like he never gets into any fights on his own, and when he finally has to, he just fucks it all up.
I mean, I feel like the lesson we learn is not uncommon in the art form, but it's had he learned the power of friendship and had a cool, sweet team of buddies instead of underlings, maybe he would have won.
The rewards of being loved versus the mortifying ordeal of being known, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Assassin Squad, had they been working together more, maybe they would have stood a chance against the Rowdy Boys, but I don't know.
Because, like, they were pretty big threats when they hated each other, but were still working with each other in those couple of instances.
The most, I don't know, fearsome and difficult stand battles that our heroes, survived are the ones where they were, are the ones where the enemies were working together, the train fight, Tiziano and Squalo, like they all got real fucked up, real bad.
Yeah.
I don't even remember how Tiziana, what's his name?
Yeah, Tiziana.
Tiziana and
he's
Squalo.
named for a painter instead of a food.
Okay, thank you. And that's their stands are what? Crush and Talking Heads?
Yeah.
Or
Clash and Talking Head, yeah.
Okay. And Talking Head, the power is that it replaces your tongue with a little guy who talks for you, right? Says the opposite of what you want to say.
Yep.
Is there anything else there? Am I missing something?
Well, it also made Narancia have a super prehensile tongue that slashed his wrist when he didn't want to.
True.
And like turn like sinks on. Yeah, I think that's all it did. And then you also had teleporting shark.
Teleporting shark. Yeah, that's cool. It's pretty cool. It can teleport to the your tears. The tears that are streaming down your face. I would have liked to see a few more team up battles, because those are obviously the most complicated when you get multiple stand users going in on shit. But yeah, I wish the Climax had a little more working parts and a little less like Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
But maybe not quite as exciting as the conclusion of the last two series, but still satisfying, and has the very weird decision to have a flashback that kind of makes sense and fits thematically, if being kind of a bummer as far as tempo is concerned.
I respect the final confrontation because it's maybe the craziest one since part 2.
Yeah. What exactly? I'm trying to remember what happens in part 2. So that's where he fights the 3 pillar men?
Yeah. And Supercars gets a laser to the brain so he can turn into birds and shoot armadillos at people.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of remember that.
His hand becomes a squirrel that can burrow its way through multiple Nazis' chests in one go.
He makes a suit out of lava so he can survive inside lava.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very scientific. Air bubbles. Yeah. Air bubbles. Yeah, that one's wild.
And he's still in space. He's still out there in space to this day.
It's my favorite constant of all of JoJo's, just knowing that he's going further and further out into space.
Maybe I'll have to reread that. How's the? I haven't watched the anime of that one. Is it good? Is it the same as the comics?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, yeah. Do they condense anything? Part 1 is just Dio. Okay, that all makes sense.
Part 1 and 2 are just one season, since part 1 is short enough.
Okay.
Thinking about the final, confrontation, and also looking back to those early parts, Gold Experience is Hamon. Gold Experience is just the Hamon stand.
Yeah.
It's still working. Like all these decades later, in both real time and writing time. It's the same theory of what life is.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of thematically, that's pretty interesting that they bring it back.
I mean, he's the son of 2 Hamon users. His 2 biological dads are Hamon masters.
Mm-hmm.
Have there been any other, aside from Koichi, have there been any other characters that have stands that have multiple levels outside of the Requiem stands? I don't think so.
I think Koichi's the first.
Yeah, okay. Koichi's the first. He's the first one to get a Digimon stand. I know there are more like that later parts, but I think that's all we got for now. But yeah, I didn't really think about that, but yeah, it's Golden Experience is very much that, down to the fact that they're still representing, well, I guess that's an anime thing, but still representing life as, a golden aura. At least they didn't keep that conductivity rule that Hamon had.
But like a golden aura with a will, that it is a force of nature, that there is alive and there is not alive. And that is a very important binary that there's really no messing with, at least not yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot like philosophically in what it means to be alive that is true for both Hamon and Gold Experience.
Yeah, I like that. I had not thought of that before. Just talking briefly about the boys in general.
Those boys.
The boys. Man, I kind of wish, like, it makes sense that Fugo is the one that leaves the group, but I kind of wish it was Abakio instead. I feel like
because you just don't want to look at him. Yeah.
I just feel like Fugo had more character I was invested into than Abakio, who doesn't really ever go much of anywhere.
That's fair, because Fugo has there's a little bit of conflict there, right? I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, from his past, and it comes up when he's dying, and he has that vision in his mind as he's dying and stuff. But I'm trying to remember any Abakio moments.
He makes Giorno drink his pee.
He makes, at the start, he makes Giorno drink his own pee. And then there's the bit where he joins in on kicking that guy, which is funny. But, I'm trying to remember any Abakio moments where he had, briefly, there's that bit in the first third where he, he does not like Giorno, and stuff, and he's always disagreeing with Giorno's view of things, and eventually, you know, Giorno kind of grabs his respect a little bit, like at the end of the first third. But then after that, I cannot think of anything else that happens with Bacchio that isn't just like a small funny moment. Like it just feels like he does not have any other character moments. It's all Narancia and Bruno and Mista.
I think that goes to how much the show is an action show, and the way you get character is through fighting, and his stand is a tool, not a warrior, you know? So, yeah, he floats to the background the same way that Trish doesn't really take center stage until A, she has a combat stand, and B, even more of the boys die.
Yeah. Another shame, because I like Trish a lot.
And she at least seems to have at least a little bit of an arc.
Yeah.
She's like a spoiled brat at the start, and then she, you know, slowly becomes less of one, I guess. Becomes part of the team.
Remember when she's first introduced, she almost stabs Narancia in the face?
And is very particular about her stockings, yes.
Yep.
That she does not wear. Just look at her. What?
Yeah, I feel like Bacchio existed mainly to... he has a support stand. You want one on the team, but he's not quite as exciting conflict wise.
Yeah. Like I'm trying to remember, is he...
Like nobody wants to play him. Like if we were playing this as like an RPG, and nobody's like, oh, dibs on a Bacchio, so I can figure out what happened in the past.
Now I'm imagining like 6-year-olds playing JoJo's on the playground.
Oh yeah.
You can't be Bruno. We already have 4 Brunos. You got to be a Bacchio. I'm going home.
Like, Bacchio actively participates in the Mirror Man fight. Does he actively participate in any other fight? Like, it always feels like he gets incapacitated or he's in the turtle.
What about on the boat? Isn't he like center stage on the boat?
Yeah, that's even before Mirror Man. But yeah, he's got 2 fights that he's in. You could say he's important in the Notorious B.I.G. fight. There isn't much of a fight if the plane goes down.
Yeah, he is the pilot in that one.
Yeah, he has to be the pilot. He's also the ticking clock in Doppio and what's his name?
Yeah.
That fight.
Yeah, with Risotto.
Oh, what a fight. It's the best looking fight.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah,
I don't think there's much competition, especially if you only narrow it down to part 5.
Yeah, it's just got a lot of really good looking bits.
Yeah, and with the two of them, because they're both baddies, you kind of don't have anything invested, so you just want it to be as gory and weird as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also kind of want to see you want to see King Crimson totally like wreck somebody and not feel bad about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that I think that might be the best looking fight. There's just so many good looking parts to that one visually. And man, I think it's also possibly the most violent fight in all of JoJo so far.
Yeah.
Just the sheer amount of disgusting things happening. Like
when he slices his own throat and pulls a set of scissors out of his neck. Yeah, that's super gross.
Yeah. Like I feel like after that, it's probably some of the Pillar Men stuff.
Yeah.
For like the level of violence, like near the start where like Santana is, burrowing his way through a man's eye cavity, or, the bit where all those Nazis get their hands tied together and then they get all of their juices sucked out at once and deflate. That's pretty high up there too. But that fight in part 5 is still like the one that's going to get the most visceral reaction, I think. It's just, it's messed up.
And it makes you think, I'm glad our boys didn't have to fight this Metallica guy.
God, yeah.
That would have been gross. That would have been a lot of cleanup for Giorno to deal with.
Yeah, everyone would be fighting, and Giorno would just be on the fly, just grabbing everything off the ground, like the dead frog, and just shoving it into everyone's wounds to make more blood.
I liked in that fight when the blood is streaming out of Doppio's eye tear ducts. And you can see the like reflection of the yellowish like tint of all the iron coming out of his body.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And then he has to start animals off the ground or something to replenish his iron.
He becomes a vampire for a moment. Like, he eats a kid. He eats a kid.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
Metallica, though, has to be the biggest gap between how cute a stand is and how deadly
Yes.
it is. They are sweet little nubbin guys.
They're really cute. I like them a lot.
Little silver jelly bean friends.
But yeah, super, super gross. Notorious B.I.G., that's a super gross stand. Green Day, also very gross. Mm-hmm. And possibly has the highest body count of bystanders, right? Because, like...
Gotta be, right?
Oh, yeah. It feels like several hundred people ate it during that fight. Like, some guy was just walking down the sidewalk and he fell to pieces.
And because it's a stand, he probably couldn't even see why he's falling to pieces.
Yeah. I think rewatching all of Part 5 was pretty interesting. Because compared to the first 4 parts, where I was just like, I remember all of this. Yeah, this is a good time. Part 5 was the one I've only seen once through all the way before, and I went into it going, oh man, this is the part I like the least. And like, I still think it has a lot of issues. It makes it my least favorite part, but I did come away appreciating it a lot more. In part because I think the English dub is localized a lot better than the subtitles are, which helped a lot with both explaining what the fuck was going on, but also just adding a lot more character to the boys. Because I was just not into them my first go round, and I came away from this liking them a lot more, and therefore feeling a lot more invested in everything that was happening. So yeah, thanks to this podcast, I think I like Part 5 a lot more than I did previously.
They always say that the best way to improve the boys is to get some good casting in there. Carl Urban, for example. Yeah.
Wait, what? Wait, so I watch it only with subtitles. So the voice acting's pretty good on this in this one? Carl Urban. Wait, Carl Urban's in it? Who does Carl Urban do the voice for?
Billy Butcher. No. Different voice. No.
Oh, okay. You got me. Now I look like an idiot.
The voice acting is really good. Not only the acting itself, but the different script they use for the dub is just it's great. The insults and smack talk are far more creative and just really fun.
Yeah.
Never mind the emphasis that it's given by the actors. It's good. It's good stuff.
I imagine hearing some of these names over and over would be very funny too.
Yeah.
There's nothing like hearing Zipperman shouted. Oh! If you haven't heard the English voices, then you haven't heard what they did to Sex Pistols. All 6 of them have different accents, and number 7 is a cowboy.
Oh wow!
It's really good.
I will say, watching it with subtitles, anytime the bullets were flying around, I would always have to turn the volume down because they were very loud and annoying.
They're very high pitched. Yeah, they're pretty good in the English dub. And also, yeah, you gotta at least check out a little bit of it because the guy who voices Diablo is really good, especially in the final couple episodes when he's really pissed off. He's so good in it.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of giving all the bullets different accents because it reminds me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give it another watch. I'll at least check out a snippet of get some of these voices.
Yeah.
In a way, this has it's been good to talk about it, and now it's making me kind of interested to see where the future of JoJo's goes because I know there's more. There's a few more seasons. There's at least one more season, right, of anime.
Part 6 is still in production. The first third came out early this year in like February, and then the next batch of episodes comes out at the start of September. Or October?
Will it be the rest of it? Will it just be the middle third? Wait and see.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm interested to see where it goes because there's been enough variety that I never quite know what to expect. Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I think this is a series that is super weird, and at least for me, who doesn't maybe this is a totally normal style comic for some folks. But yeah. It's great. I'm glad to talk about it with you guys and to learn a bunch of stuff.
But it's been fantastic to have you on. Thank you very much for joining us. Stuart, sounds like we're moving into plugs. Where would you like to point people at? What should people check out? Where can they find you?
You can definitely check out my podcast, The Flophouse, where a couple of guys review bad movies. We've been doing it for almost 15 years now, I think.
Wow.
By the time of this airing, I guess it'll be 15 years. And I do that with two good friends of mine, and you can find us wherever you find podcasts. If you like to drink and you're in Brooklyn, I own two bars, Hinterlands Bar and Minnie's Bar. Just check us out. We're, I don't know, slightly nerdy, but, normal bars. Come visit. And that's kind of about it. That's all of me.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. I am a regular listener to the Flophouse and really enjoy it. And this has just been really exciting for me. I'm trying to not do the thing. Nobody likes it when you do the thing, but there's a little part of me that's kind of wants to do the thing. But we also have some announcements for this show. This is the end. Like we've been saying, when we started this show, this would have been the end. It will not be the end, but it will be a temporary end. So while we wait for Part 6, the Part 6 animation, Stone Ocean, to be complete and ready for us to talk about it uninterrupted, we're going to go on a bit of a hiatus on this feed. What we will be doing in the meantime, though, is we are going to be doing a series of streams of JoJo's video games between now and then. So, Chip, where are those going to be?
So those will all be broadcasted on my Twitch account, which is twitch.tv/ChipCheesem. And if you miss them live, they're going to be up on our YouTube channel, ChipCheesem LPS. So
those of you who listen to these on the YouTube mirror, it's like nothing's changed except a little bit of the particular content.
If I was going to check out one JoJo video game, what would be the first one you would recommend?
So I think probably the answer most people would give is the arcade fighting game produced by Capcom that's also on the PlayStation 1, which is just called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I believe. It's based off of Stardust Crusaders. Fun fighting game. The arcade mode, like single-player thing, does some fun stuff with... it's not just straight fighting game matches, because it goes through the entire story of Stardust Crusaders, and there's certain fights that turn into a different genre of game. For instance, when fighting the lovers, and both Kakyoin and Polnareff have to make their stands tiny to fight the lovers inside Joseph's brain. That is a side-scrolling shooter.
Whoa.
Instead. Yeah, where you're shooting a bunch of the little lovers' copies inside Joseph's brain. And stuff.
That's great. Stuff
like that makes it really fun. A lot of attention to detail to Stardust Crusaders and stuff. For instance, you can play as a lot of the villains, and so, hey, the guy who has the stand that can de-age people, what if you use the secret move to de-age people on stuff like, say, old Joseph Joestar? Well, he turns into young Joseph Joestar with his own unique moveset and stuff like that. Like, there's lots of cool Easter eggs like that throughout. So I think that's probably the best one to check out.
Okay, that's the Capcom JoJo's Bizarre Adventure game.
Yeah, and in fact, I think like you can emulate it, but there is an HD version you can get. It was on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. So if you have a modern Xbox console, you should still be able to buy it and play it. So yeah,
cool.
Check that out.
Good rec.
And along with the video games, we are probably going to check out a couple of the other like side JoJo things, right? Or at least that book Araki put out.
Yes. The regular podcast feed here will have some irregular updates in the meantime. Our Best of Part 2 compilation. We are going to be reading Manga in Theory and Practice by Araki. I got to see if like my local shop has that so I can, give them money for it instead of somebody else.
Yeah.
But yes, very excited for that. And eventually, there will be a big announcement for when we start episodes on Part 6, Stone Ocean, straight on through to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Some personal plugs then, in the meantime. You can check out my other shows. Sex Archie just finished the 6th season of Riverdale. At time of recording, we have one more to go. So I'm excited to see how they wrap this up. Does Bailey's Comet obliterate the Earth? Who could say? I mean, probably not, but maybe.
Possible.
And also 6 Feet Under should have the beginning of its final 3 episodes of our Mouse Guard campaign up. That is a cutaway to what, the Weasels of Dark Heather are doing in the early days of the Winter War of 1149, followed by an episode on the war itself, and then a post-campaign epilogue that I'm homebrewing a game for as we speak. I'm very excited about that as well. So again, that's SIXFEATSUNDER.com or wherever you get your podcasts. It's a great time. So yes, while we are leaving you with our regular weekly JoJo's for a short period of time, you can still find all of our stuff, doing a lot of other fun things in the meantime. Any last words before we go?
Thanks for having me.
And it's been a lot of fun going through these 5 finished parts. Excited for the eventual part 6. Maybe, I don't know, finished by early next year, maybe? Who knows? And yeah, until then, see you later.
To be continued.